Wherever you are right now, we invite you to settle in, close your eyes, and picture this. You're on a small boat, plying a tranquil canal surrounded by floating gardens, or on a sun-dappled hillside striped with grapevines and hazelnut trees, and scented ever so faintly with truffles, or on the lush, sprawling grounds of an ancient summer palace, which you have entirely to yourself. Now imagine that this isn't all some sort of fantasy land that exists only in your mind's eye, but actually the tiniest sampling of the kinds of places you can visit around the world with one of its most respected and venerable tour operators. Here to share more about the kinds of experiences you can have with Tauck on the occasion of its 100th birthday is the company's CEO, Jennifer Tombaugh. Jennifer Tombaugh, welcome to Well Traveled with AAA.
Thank you so much, Abby. I'm delighted to be here. It's truly an honor, and I'm so excited to share with your listeners some of those many sensory experiences and exclusive access that we provide our guests.
Well, great. So let's start with the fact that the company has just turned 100 and in honor of the occasion had the most amazing sounding celebration in Italy. Could you share a bit about that with our listeners?
I would be delighted to, and it really was a tremendous experience. We brought 700 people, all of our employees and our Tauck directors and our board and of course, the Tauck family together in Florence to celebrate our centennial. Can you imagine? We're one of so few companies in the world today that, certainly in the United States, can mark that 100th passing. And we chose Florence, this incredible city, so deliberately. Obviously, Italy has always been a top Tauck destination. Consistently, it is the top geography that our guests choose. But the metaphor around Florence was particularly poignant this year and at this time. Florence comes from the word Florentia, which is the symbol of rebirth, which also means, the arrival of spring, of flourishing. Its city emblem is the lily that speaks to all of that. It's the city of flowers, and it's a confluence of both rivers and certainly ideas. So what better place than on the cusp of our second century of innovation, of creativity, and we hope for the benefit of all of your travelers, lots of growth and new opportunities, that we were in this destination.
Well, not far from there, a few hours away, speaking of the next century, is the scene of one of Tauck's new trips for this year and the year ahead, a week in Piedmont. What can you share with listeners to whet their appetite to spend a week there?
Well, you're right. And one of the things that we have seen as a great growth opportunity is that kind of weekend program. We know many people are working later in their lives and they want that getaway, but maybe can't take the longer trip they'd love. And Italy has obviously been so saturated with the destination I just mentioned, Venice, Florence, and Rome. And we're starting to look more and more off the beaten path. And this is one of Italy's most beautiful regions. If you are wondering where that is, it's bordered by France and Switzerland and fringed with alpine views. And so spending a week there to dive into the picture perfect environment and partake of that food and wine is really a whole journey of the senses. So you can imagine, again, that I think you referenced this, that quiet hush of the forest floor in Alba, where we go for an early morning truffle hunt, that rich air, kind of laden with the scent of that musky aroma of truffles, and you hear that soft snuffle of the truffle dog searching around under those under the feet of those hazelnut trees, finding that treasure. Obviously, this area is known hugely for its Barolos and its Barbarescos, and so standing in that vineyard, you can imagine yourself swirling that glass of ruby red liqueur, with that complex perfume and that sort of seductive draw, and it's that velvet, bold, unforgettable taste that makes this landscape, it comes from this landscape that makes it just so unforgettable and world class. So we're so excited about the exclusive experiences that we have, such as these that touch on these gorgeous cities of Turin, of Alba, of Gavi, but that really go off the beaten path to pull out those treasures of the castellos and the vineyards, and the countryside that is truly breathtaking.
Ready to escape and immerse yourself in a world of culture and adventure? Discover iconic landmarks, stroll through historic streets, indulge in local cuisine, and experience the unique charm of your dream destination. Let us help you plan your unforgettable journey. Visit AAA.com/travel. Speaking of the Castello landscape there, we had touched in the intro on having one of these century-old royal summer palaces to yourself when you go on one of these trips, and sort of this idea that your guests have exclusive access for a time to some of the places that they visit, and how extraordinary that must be, especially when you're on the grounds of the summer residence of an old royal family.
One of the things that we hear over and over again as to why people travel with Tauck and just overall is they're looking for that exclusive access of things you couldn't easily do on your own. And you're exactly right that we have an opportunity for an exclusive opening visit at Venaria Reale, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and was the former hunting residence of the House of Savoy. And again, it's that off the beaten path access, those places where you can really feel the echoes of the history and imagine the dogs coming in from their hunt and what it must be like to hear the men jostling through the halls and celebrating their morning together. And that sort of feeling of just that the transportive moment that takes you back is something that we're always seeking to weave across all of our programs. And I know that listeners are looking for more and more, especially as many of the major cities become much more populated, particularly in those peak travel months. So having that access, that off the beaten path experience in those smaller group experiences to even make that all the more special. And it's one of the reasons we see great growth in our weekend programs again overall, but also specifically in our small and what we have now as our even smaller groups.
Right. Well, on another new A Week In program in a completely different part of the world, Mexico, and in, yes, a very populous city, of course, Mexico City, you also offer some really interesting exclusive access, getting into the Diego Rivera Museum before it opens, and I believe also staying after hours in the giant Museum of Anthropology there. Are you able to share a bit of what that is like for your travelers?
Sure. I think, what ties those very different parts of the world and destinations together is this love of access, but of the food, and the culture and those rich sensory experiences. This new week in Mexico and Oaxaca is becoming a fan favorite internally here at Tauck, I think, and is selling quickly, because it's such a beautiful blend of contrast, the energy and scale of Mexico City paired with that charm and the intimacy of Oaxaca. And it speaks to that art, the architecture, the cuisine, the magic, those pastel-colored buildings and cobblestone streets that you can hear your heels clicking on. And the art scene is simply astounding. And on that moment, a truly Tauck moment, we gain again that early private access to Frida Kahlo's Casa Azul, cobalt blue home full of personal mementos, artwork, and history. And again, that's before the crowds arrive. So you're there in the morning glow of light as you move from room to room. Really, it's so intimate and powerful and personal when you're walking as you're surrounded by her brushets and corsets and love letters. There's just an incredible opportunity to really, again, feel the person in the place.
Yeah.
And it's that type of access that and kind of ability to relate to the person as much as possible and to the destination in a much more deeper way that we seek to find for all of our travelers.
Are you enjoying Well Traveled with AAA? Subscribe to this podcast today and share your thoughts on ratings and reviews. And of course, one of the first associations people have with Mexico, even in the U.S., is the amazing and varied cuisine. What kinds of culinary experiences might people expect when they're on that week in Mexico City and Oaxaca?
Yeah. Well, we are so lucky to have the opportunity to venture in kind of, again, behind the scenes. If you perhaps have ever watched Searching for Mexico series with Eva Longoria on CNN, you might have seen or met a chef named Alex Rios. And he really put the whole Oaxaca food scene on the map. And we know how, as you mentioned, how popular that is. And so you'll have an opportunity to really literally roll up your sleeves and have a cooking demonstration at a cooking school founded by him. And that really... That school is really interesting to mention as well, because it also shows his way of giving back to his local community by providing an opportunity to locals to have careers in culinary fields. And this is also something very much part of the Tauck ethos of being able to support these thriving communities. And they'll be showing us how to make that traditional Oaxaca cuisine. And of course, you get to sit there with mexicalitas. That's a margarita with mezcal instead of tequila. It's so good. And then taste the cuisine in that regard. Outside of Mexico City, gliding through the ancient canals of Xochimilco, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site again, and you'll visit a local farm and come upon these chinampas, which are man-made islands. And there, organic and sustainable farming is still practiced. And the best part is we get to eat lunch there. So you're going to get those fresh, can't you just smell them? Those organic homemade tortillas, those quesadillas, and have your thirst in the heat quenched with those wonderful fresh squeezed juices. So you can hear almost the sizzle of the quesadillas in the pan as you glide along, and it's truly so evocative and exciting. And I know I have this one on the top of my list to visit.
And just speaking of these ancient holdovers in Mexican culture, it's not just the canals and the ancient agricultural system, the floating agriculture system, but also a number of the archaeological sites that your guests get to visit on this trip, right? And not just at the museum.
Yes. I mean, certainly we always talk about the people, but the places and that exploration of those archaeological locations that are really, I think, appreciated more in contrast with the Museum of Anthropology. Again, after it's closed to the public, because you'll be able to, unfortunately, like a lot of wonderful, amazing archaeological places around the world, some of the most prized elements of that have been taken to museums. And so there's a sadness to that, because they're not in situ, but yet you can have them perfectly preserved. So at the Museum of Anthropology, you'll be seeing the Aztec sunstone or Montezuma's headpieces with no one around. And so I think then when you're actually in the location of these amazing archaeological journeys and explorations on our adventure across Mexico, you have that deep appreciation of what was there and be able to put the pieces together.
Getting ready to travel? Make sure you and your travel investment are protected with travel insurance so you can do more and worry less. For more information about the benefits of travel insurance, visit AAA.com/travel insurance. And we can't have any conversation about archaeology and archaeology-related travel without bringing up Greece.
Oh, yes.
And I know that Greece is another part of the world that you are introducing a number of trips to, and in particular, this family travel style called bridges. Maybe you could share with our listeners a little bit about bridges and how it's going to play out in Greece in particular for families who are interested in traveling there together.
Absolutely. And I will say Bridges is near and dear to my heart. I've been with Tauck for 24 years, and my first job was to launch Tauck Bridges. We had a number of families traveling with children on our journeys, and we had some of our guests were delighted with that, and yet wanted more activity for the kids that were there and wanted to go on. And they wanted to bring with them. And then there were others who said, I think I've done my time with my kids and I want some quiet time. So I think we can relate. I can relate as a mom to both those situations, but Bridges was particularly designed for that, to be that first multi-generational travel brand. So we've been doing this since 2003 in a more formal way. And we've seen the Bridges products just continue to grow and expand. And, it was interesting. We just finished our board meeting and we went around the table last night and had everyone's talked about what was their favorite trip. And I would say probably 80% of the people who responded at our table as we went around were speaking to a Bridges experience, perhaps on the heels of Percy Jackson, and I know for my children, and just overall the intrigue of Greek mythology. We couldn't think about going back to Greece on a land program, which we had many years ago, that we launched, and then had to rest for various things that were going on in the world at the time. But we brought not only back our classic program, but we have the Greek Odyssey, which is our family edition. And it really immerses your family in that timeless embrace of these incredible archaeological sites, particularly at the Acropolis, but understanding either in Olympia being the most sacred site of ancient Greece and the original home of the Olympic Games, how appropriate as the Olympics come back to the U.S. here in a few years. So it's such I know my kids have always said, can we just please go to Greece? I've been reading all about it and they know so much about this. And so many of these destinations are chosen by the children, you'd be surprised to know. So this really has that blend of that awe-inspiring history of ancient Athens with that kind of downtime and just family bonding time along the sun-kissed coast in the Peloponnese. And so it's a wonderful combination of ability to, just let the kids wander through the grandeur of the Acropolis and just try to take that in. It's you see it in pictures, but when you're there and you see the shadows and the sunlight and the sort of feel the embrace of the marble around you, it really feels like this. You're with the spirit of Athena, and then to go from there into, for example, on a contrast, the island of Hydra, where you just will hear only that kind of rhythmic clip of hooves and that gentle splash of oars, because there are no cars on Hydra, and so you really get a donkeys,
sense, right? Donkeys as transportation there.
Exactly. So you can wander that around by saddle, or by foot or by boat, and just be like a local around those sunlit harbors, and just let your imagination go.
And isn't there even a participatory sort of mini Olympics for travelers on this trip?
Yes, we always try to find fun activities for that will engage the kids. I know, for example, when I took my kids on the family version of the Blue Danube, we were doing a medieval jousting battle in Bratislava. And the kids still talk about who knocked who off of the bench, sort of thing, with their jousting pole. And sort of similarly here, we have a very fun opportunity for the kids to really engage and take on one another as only kids and families can do, in a again, an involving and hopefully fun opportunity for showing who's tops.
Make family travel easy and unforgettable with Tauck and AAA. Enjoy hand-picked hotels, family-friendly dining, and fun for all ages, all expertly planned and included. Book with a AAA travel agent for exclusive member perks and savings. Visit AAA.com/travel. Well, and I'm sure that a lot of the adults are secretly grateful that the kids provide cover to get to do these kinds of activities that you wouldn't normally get to do if you weren't catering to kids' interests and appetites. And even, I think, the guided mythology storytelling walks. I mean, presumably that's in the itinerary for kids, but probably grown-ups like that too, right?
Oh, we've really, one of the beauties about Tauck Bridges is it really is multi-gen. And we've seen a third. Parents and children, grandparents, parents and children, grandparents and grandchildren, so we see those different combinations. And so, the onus is on our product teams to come up and design a program that really embraces and provides interest for all. And of course, what we often find is if the kids are happy, everybody else is happy.
Right.
But clearly there's tons of learning along the way. If we had an idea around Bridges when we launched it, it was about shared experiences. And it was that, again, taking in, and I myself am a product of this and have a firm believer in my own approach to my 4 kids, is that a passport is the best diploma you can ever have, because there's nothing like seeing a place and taking that in. And everyone walks away knowing that they are enriched in mind, certainly, no matter what the age of traveler, but certainly in heart and in spirit.
Well, that really leads perfectly into my last question for you, which is, what does well-traveled mean to you?
Well-traveled means joy. It means a heart of exploration. It means an endless curiosity. It means a willingness to discover that ultimately brings the soul back to joy. And I think, as we've seen from our travelers for well over a century, that they reflect back on their many experiences, whether they've traveled with us once or whether they've traveled with us, like some of our guests, more than 70 times. They speak about the joyful experiences that they've shared, no matter where they've been in the world, and the ability, whether it's connecting with a fellow traveler, connecting with a local, enjoying a meal. It's the celebration of the joy that delights their spirit and that carries on and has empowered us for, again, 100 years, and we hope for at least 100 more.
Well, congratulations again on the big birthday. I hope the celebrations continue apace out in the world.
Thank you so very much, Abby. I'm so delighted to be here, and I'm so grateful for all of the AAA listeners who join us. We welcome you, and we look forward to many more adventures together.
You can find all of our interviews with other travel experts from around the world on the Well Traveled with AAA feed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We hope you'll rate us or leave a comment and let us know what you think. I'm Abby Kozolczyk. Thanks for listening.